In the long history of video games, one of the biggest issues that was faced was how to save your progress. Now, most games in the early times, around the 70s or so, got away with using what's called the password system, where the game would generate a random string of numbers or letters, or sometimes both, and that would tell the game what you had at the time. So you would write that down. Whenever you would come back to the game, you'd have to enter it back in, and then you could pick up where you left off. This has spawned some interesting Easter eggs over time. For instance, the original Metroid. If you put the name Justin Bailey into the password system of this original Metroid for the NES, it would spawn you as Samus without her power armor, all energy tanks, and about 200 missiles, I believe. You would die, I think, in one hit, if I remember correctly, but it was a cool alternative way to play the game that just so happened to be from doing something like inputting a password. The password stuff has been around for a long time and actually lasted, to my knowledge, all the way up until 2004. You even had some Game Boy Advanced games. I believe there was a SpongeBob game in particular that had a password system. So if you wanted to go off and do something and change games, you had to write that down or you would lose all your progress and couldn't pick up where you left off. But the password system would get old after a while, and developers would have to come up with a way for you to save your progress and be able to turn off the game and not have to write anything down. And in 1986, Nintendo were the ones first to come up with it with The Legend of Zelda on the original NES. And they came up with a way for you to keep your progress on the cartridge. So no matter what system you went to, no matter what house, if you went to your buddy's house or something like that, you could plug the same cartridge in and you'd have your progress. Well, how did they do it? If we go ahead and open this guy up here, if we open up the cartridge and take a look at the circuit board, what you'll see is a button cell battery, or sometimes called a CMOS battery. These were used to give power to one of the chips here, which was the save memory. I don't know which chip it is, but that's how it was designed. So whenever you turned off the console, whichever one of these chips needed the power to hold the save memory would do so. Whenever you plugged the cartridge back in, turned it on, boom, there your save file was. And this happened, like I said, for years. What I wanted to work on today was not that Zelda cartridge, although I did bring it just to show the history of where saving your game came from. What I wanted to work on today was this. This is my copy of Pokémon Silver. I bought it online, and the person I bought it from said that it did not save. And the reason for that is because it has a battery in here just like that Zelda cartridge. There we go. That guy right there is most likely dead. The way that Pokemon worked was the original games, Red and Blue and Yellow, had the same kind of battery like this. It gradually would drain the battery to keep the save file stored on the cartridge, and eventually your save file was just gone. Those would last, a good 30 years, 35 years, depending on which one you had. Red and Blue and Yellow would usually get away with that. These guys, unfortunately, though, also had RTC, or real-time clock, functions. So it could track what time of day it was, and it would adjust that on the cartridge. It kept a constantly running clock, and over 20 years, almost 30 years, it drains the battery to the point where it's dead. And this guy is in fact dead. It will not hold the save anymore. So now what we have to try to do to fix it is change this battery out. The other thing that you're going to need, or things I should say, is of course a new battery. This one is actually not the proper kind. These batteries are what's called a CR2025. What I have in my hand here is a CR2032. I thought they were the same, but they're not. Hopefully it'll work. Should work. They're the same diameter. This one's just a little bit thicker, so we'll have to see what happens. And the other thing you are going to need is one of these, a soldering iron, because this metal here needs to be melted, so that way we can take the battery off, and we also need to use some of that solder to reattach these pins onto the circuit board. Now, one question that might be at the back of your mind is what happens to the save when you remove the battery? Well, just like the battery dying, if you have a save file on there and you remove it, it goes away. It's not going to be there anymore. You're going to lose your progress. For games like Silver, Gold, and Crystal, there's really nothing you can do. Most of these cartridges are already dead anyway, so the saves are gone to begin with. However, with Red, Blue, and Yellow, and also Green, there are third-party tools that you can get that you can plug into a computer where you can take the cartridge, plug it into the tool, offload the save file, change the battery, put the save file back on, and keep your progress. Some of them work better than others. I don't know a whole lot about them, But there are resources out there that you can look at. I'll put a link in the description for a couple of the different tools that you can use. But if you do want to do this, I encourage doing your own research and making sure that it's what you want to do before you commit to anything. So, first things first, we need to get the soldering iron warmed up. He's not super fancy, but he is at least temperature controlled. If you are going to be doing any kind of work on electronics, I do recommend getting something that's temperature controlled, because some solder will melt at certain degrees, some will melt at other degrees. I'm going to keep the iron off to the side here, so that way I can have a pretty clear workspace to work on here. What I'm going to try to do is to leave the solder on the board while I work on it. I have some solder off to the side, but I'd like to be able to just take this one off and put the new one on. Okay, so that's one side of it detached, and there is still some solder on that piece of the board, so hopefully we'll be able to just desolder this one and be good to go. Now, one thing I was reading about that I will tell and bring up is that when you're desoldering these things, what you want to try to do is not break or bend these little posts. I have very obviously screwed that up here. What you want to also do is try to keep the soldering iron away from directly touching the battery. In rare cases, it can cause the battery to like rupture and start to vent gases, but otherwise it can just damage it, make it not last as long or not work to begin with. And there we go. That's it. So yeah, heat it up for less than 10 seconds, pull the guy out, and boom, this is our old dead battery. Now, as I said before, these guys are not the same size. So this guy, this 2032 here is a little bit thicker. He's a bit on the chonkier side. We're going to have to see how that works. This guy's actually going to be a little bit big. Let me grab some cutters. We'll see if we can get that a little bit. All right, that should be a good size. And what I've seen a lot is what people are able to do is heat this metal for the battery tab. Heat the solder through the metal on the battery tab is what I've seen a lot of people be able to do. That is what I'm currently doing here. So all I'm doing is resting the iron on the battery tab itself. I hope you were wanting to see me destroy this this copy of Pokemon Silver, because here we go. Well, I think that might work. I don't really know if that's going to work or not. But the big thing that we got to figure out is whether or not it will fit back in the case. Because if it doesn't, then I'm going to have to get a CMOS battery that's the proper size and redo this all over again. So let's see. Well, it's got a little bit of a bulge to it, but it fit. It's just kind of a tight fit. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to reassemble it. I'm going to plug it into the Game Boy, and we're going to see what we can do. Alrighty, got my Game Boy here, my Game Boy Color. Let's see, plug him in, turn him on. Okay, so we can change the text speed. Let's see, we'll do a new game real quick. Will you check the clock for me? What time is it? It is currently 2:05. What? Day 2 o'clock? How many minutes? 5? Yeah. 6? Whoa, 6 minutes? Yeah. Day 2-6. Yikes, I overslept. Hello, sorry to keep you waiting. Welcome to the world of Pokemon. My name is Oak, the Pokemon Professor, the classic. Okay, so I have the save option now. Let's see, let's try that. Would you like to save the game? Yes. Saving. Silver, save the game. Okay. Now we turn it off. Take the cartridge out. Continue. Ah, there we go. We have a save game. Sunday, day 207. Well, it's not a Sunday, it's a Saturday. Playtime 0, badges 0. Yeah, awesome, cool. Quick, simple, easy, no muss, no fuss, just the way I like it. So, that was all I had for today. I really appreciate you guys tuning in. Hopefully you guys can do this on your own cartridges, or find somebody who has a soldering iron, ask them to borrow it, take care of it, do a little bit of repair work on your childhood nostalgia there. But anyway, that's all I had for today. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one.